This crazy earworm that said maybe you could write a book. If I ever wrote a book, it would be about you. That was crazy. That triggered something in me. I feel like I'm embarking on a big sort of personal journey in committing to this project. Perhaps even put it in front of a literary agent one day. That would be insane. Hello! Welcome back to Bookshelves. My name is Shelby, and this is a very exciting new vlog, not focused on reading, instead focused on writing. I will tell you all about the project I'm working on, some of my goals for the year, and what I've been up to, what gave me this crazy earworm that said maybe you could write a book. But to get started, I actually wanted to head over to the library and get a little bit of time in there doing some writing. So come along with me on a little Saturday afternoon adventure to the library, and I will catch you up in a little bit. Okay, let me start by telling you a little story about how we got here. Anyone who's watched my reading content will know that I used to be a massive bookworm as a kid. And like a lot of us, I think as I sort of reached the end of high school and shifted into college, I just was sort of overwhelmed by all the reading I had to do for school that I really stopped reading for myself. I picked reading back up in 2020. I was in grad school, there's a pandemic happening, and I was like, this used to be such a big part of my identity. I really want to try to build that habit again. And it has been such a gift to have that back as an adult, and it's now such a core part of my life again, which I love so much. And I think also, like a lot of bookworms, as a child who loved reading, I also loved writing. I wrote short stories and the starts of a few novels as a kid, and I think like many kids that enjoy reading and writing, I definitely dreamed of writing a book one day. And then I grew up and I had to make practical decisions about my life, and I really wrote off writing as a means of making money or having any sort of professional goals in favor of research-based writing. So I wrote for an online magazine in college, and my current job requires that I conduct a lot of research and do a lot of writing in more of an academic kind of sense. But creative writing, fiction writing, fantasy, magical, whimsical writing, that has not been a part of my life in a long time. So I am first and foremost a fantasy reader. Fantasy and sci-fi are the bread and butter of what I read. And as I came back to reading as an adult, I quickly realized that one of the sort of subgenres of fantasy writing I loved a lot was Greek mythology retellings. I haven't read them all because no one could probably read them all, but I have a very large collection of Greek mythology retellings. And I love the genre so much, particularly the sort of feminist retelling take on the Greek mythology genre. And not long after sort of discovering this love, I encountered this character who I sort of heard of like culturally in passing, but didn't know the story of particularly well, who just really captured my attention. And this character really just made me think, like, if I ever wrote a book, it would be about you. And I was never like, I'm gonna write a book. That would be crazy. But here we are. And so after sort of like years of sort of taking in all of these stories, really being re-immersed in my love of reading and writing and storytelling, kind of paired, honestly, with taking sort of a leadership role in my D&D hobby as well. So I've been playing D&D for several years, Dungeons and Dragons. And in the last year, I became a DM for the first time, a dungeon master, which can be as simple as like leading a game based on a pre-written book. But I was extra and sort of developed my own campaigns from scratch, my own worlds from scratch. And that like triggered something in me. It was this like, this muscle I forgot I had, you know, this like intense interest that I had just forgotten about. I hadn't noticed it because it had been so long since I'd used it. And so, you know, I had this sort of accumulating base of knowledge and interest, and that little voice in the back of my head that said, if I ever wrote a story, it would be about you. And then I started to engage in like creative storytelling as an adult for the first time in the last year through this D&D campaign, actually 2 campaigns, which is silly. Don't run 2 campaigns at once, especially if it's your first time. And anyway, 2025 rolls around and it's the new year. I'm setting goals and I think to myself, it's like totally crazy to try to write a book. But what if I just took that idea seriously a little bit? Like, what if I just let myself think about the seed of this story and just give it some brain space, you know, just see what happens, like zero pressure. But if I give it some space, if I give it some thought, if I do a little research, if I start jotting down my notes when they kind of crop up in my head, maybe something can come of that. And I had this sort of generic goal of exploring how to fit writing into my life in 2025. And so I did. I spent the first couple months of the year just thinking about the story seriously. And I made a little page on my Notion where I could like drop all of my notes, and it was bananas in there because it was like there was no organization. It was just brain dump all the time. And I started seeking out like more information about this character and all the ways in which they're woven into other people's stories. And in particular, there is like a theme within this person's story that is so resonant for me in the work that I do, and I think would give the story a unique angle. And so after a couple months of noodling, I said, I think I'm gonna write a book. I know it still sounded absurd, but I said it. And my husband didn't blink, which God bless him, that's great of him, because I was blinking. I was like, that's silly, but I think I want to try. And he was like, yeah, totally, you should do that. I believe in you. So in March, I kind of shifted away from like just taking notes and started to really grapple with like, if I did this, how would I do it? Like, what's the point of view? What's the structure? What are all the key plot points? Like, where am I starting and stopping this story? Are there interesting tools I could be using to tell this story? And started to kind of like do a little bit of outlining. And about a month later, I felt like I had sort of exhausted what outlining could do for me, because there were just some things that I would only know if I tried writing them and sort of tried them at different angles, found what I liked. And so on April 14th of this year, I opened a Google Doc and I dated it, which is why I know that. And I started writing. And now I'm like at like 17,000 words. I'm like 4 chapters into this document. It's going to be so much longer than that. But I have like this really clear vision for this book. And I'm writing a book. I'm doing it. And I can't believe I'm doing that, but I thought there's like this little girl in me whose dream this is. And I'm having so much fun. And I think there are so many people who've just like let that voice in themselves go quiet. So I was like, well, why not share it? I love consuming AuthorTube content online in the same way that I love BookTube content. I know there's lots of people talking about their writing journeys, and like, who knows what, if anything, comes of this. Maybe this is just an exercise for me. I feel really strongly about the themes of the story, and I would really love to see it published one day. But that's like so far down the line. And in the interim, I have like cultivated this new love and interest in writing for myself. I've carved out time for it in my day. I'm doing it, you know? So I wanted to share that with all of you, for anybody who's interested. And if you're only interested in like books, that's cool too. We don't have to talk about writing. You can peace out on these videos. It won't hurt my feelings. But I'm hoping that for folks who are interested in writing, in like the crafting of story in the same way that you might be interested in consuming stories, I thought I would bring you along. In part, I just want this for me, frankly, like in addition to building community around it, which would be lovely. I feel like I'm embarking on like a big sort of personal journey in committing to this project, like committing to myself that I will see it through. And I want a record of that for myself, to just see where it goes, you know, and to be able to look back on the like early stages of this process, because I imagine it will be incredibly iterative. And I'm genuinely so excited to know how it evolves. And when I'm at that stage of evolution, I'm hopeful that I can look back at vlogs like this and hear like how it got there, you know? So anyways, this is a very long story time. It's a very long introduction to this vlog. But here's the deal. I am writing a novel. It will be going by the name Project Laurels on this channel. It is a Greek mythology retelling, a feminist retelling of one person's story that weaves so many iconic characters together and focuses on themes of survivorship and the violence of gods and men. And I want to keep things a little high level, a little vague, because there are lots of reasons to do that. Starting with the fact that, you know, who knows if this will ever see the light of day. But if it does, I don't want to spoil anything for you all if I'm able to share it one day. And of course, the nature of Greek mythology retellings is that, like, the way I will tell the story might be unique, but there are only so many stories. Like, there's a concrete pool of them. So I don't want to share too much, because it could kind of give away a lot about what I'm writing to go into detail. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. We're writing a book, and I'm currently in the early middle stages of drafting chapter 5 of the book. The way I have it outlined right now, it'll come in a little over 40 chapters long. And I thought I'd share a little bit about the approach I've taken to writing thus far, because I'm so new into this process. So in terms of my process, when I decided to open that new document and start really drafting, going beyond the outlining process, I knew that I have never worked on a project like this before. I've never worked on it from a content perspective before, or from a size perspective before. It's just totally new territory for me. So in these first couple of months, I have just tried to be very curious and keep tabs on what I'm doing with no judgment about what I have done. So I have a TrackBear account, which is where I record what I write each day, just like a word count generally. You can record your effort on writing projects in a lot of different ways on TrackBear. Either you can record words, chapters, hours writing, like all that stuff. But for the first couple of weeks, I decided to test out drafting in some new time that I'd carved out in my day. So I started getting up at 6 a.m. and writing for about an hour before work every day, and just jotting down how much progress I made. And I think maybe in the first 3 weeks to a month, that's like literally all I did. Like there was no pressure for me to do it every day. I wanted to build the habit of making the space, carving out the time in my day. But I wasn't putting any pressure on myself to like write every day, for example, or hit a certain word count. What I was doing was noticing how much I was doing. And I found that like depending on the nature of what I was focusing on and if I was getting in like a true hour of work or not, I was getting anywhere from like 300 to 500 words down. And so after about a month, I was like, okay, this seems relatively consistent. If I do that for 5 business days of the week, I think I could get through about a chapter a week. Maybe I should try to just see, like, if I keep up this pace, how far can I get? Like, how long would it take me to write this book? And so having established my chapter estimate from my outline and my estimated pace from tracking my writing in the first month, I kind of laid it all out and found that, like, if I maintained the ideal pace, I could have the first draft of this book done, like, by the new year. So sort of what is that? An 8-month writing process, and I'd have a whole book in front of me. It wouldn't be a good book, surely. Like, I haven't decided on like lots of names for things. I haven't done nearly enough research, so there's tons of comments throughout the document that's like, learn how this thing works. Like, is this what would have been? But there would be like a whole book in front of me. And all that while I could be really engaging with the story and how I want to craft it, and I could be consuming all of this research and and then I could jump into editing, and like editing is what I really love. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm gonna just set these goals for myself, gentle goals, no pressure goals. So the first of those goals was to finish drafting part 1 of the book by the end of June. I'm coming to you very close to the end of June. It's like the 27th, I think, today. And I am nowhere near doing that. I did a little bit of travel and visited some family and was absolutely not keeping that writing pace while I was away. But that's fine, because these are gentle goals. That being said, I also have a bunch of time off coming up this week. We're coming into the 4th of July weekend, and I have some sort of like flex time accumulated at work. And so I think I'd like to kind of focus in this first ever writing vlog on a bit of a writing sprint. Like, it's fine if I don't get to the end of part 1, but I want to see just how far I can get in the span of this week with a ton of time off. The book has a 4-part structure with some other stuff in between. So this would be completing a quarter of the book. And I just thought, well, I've been working on this long enough that I'm confident I'm going to finish it. Finish it may just mean writing to the end of a first hideous draft and letting it languish. I don't think that's what it will be. I hope that I will be able to really see this through and perhaps even put it in front of a literary agent one day. That would be insane. But for now, I know that this is something I'm committed to doing, and I thought it would be fun to share, and this seemed like a really good time to start. So, welcome to this writing vlog. We are engaging in a week-long writing sprint towards ending draft 1, part 1. That would include drafting chapters 5 through 9. So 4 chapters to draft in the span of about 7 days, exactly, through the end of the 4th of July weekend. So that's what's going on. That's what we're doing in this vlog. Thanks for being here. I hope you're interested, excited. I'm excited. And if any of you are working on writing projects, I would love to know. I would also love to know if you have favorite Greek mythology retelling books. I have several, and they go in very different directions. And something I've really enjoyed in talking to my friends about Greek mythology retellings is like, what about a particular story really resonates with somebody, like the sort of types of stories that emerge. So please tell me if you have recommendations, if you're working on anything, and I will check in with you later this week. Hello and welcome to the end of the vlog. It's been a beautiful holiday week. We've had a lot of fun. I didn't do as much writing as I had hoped and kind of imagined myself doing, but I definitely made really good progress. So let me give you a quick recap. So we had a friend come to town kind of unexpectedly early in the week, and so we spent some time with him. We had lunch, we went to a baseball game, we met some friends of his friends. It was very nice. We had 2 beach days, which was joy, especially because I really have not taken proper advantage of living in Chicago with so many beautiful beaches in the summer before. So I really loved those beach days. Spent some time in the park. We had some picnic lunches. Like, it was just beautiful. And I got in writing most days this week, but not in a super regimented way because I wasn't working for most of the week. So in total, I wrote just over 2,700 words this week. I am in the final bits of the 5th chapter of this book. Still several chapters left in part 1, so that goal is still pretty far off, pretty distant, but I feel really good about the progress that I made. And I also got some really good reading in that was also very inspirational for what I'm working on. You know, I felt like I was making progress a lot, both in my reading and my writing, and also in my mind, because here's the other thing. The first few days of this week, my husband was back from travel, and so we were just, spending a lot of time catching up, and I was talking to him about a particular idea I had for the story, and we just had one of those really incredible, engaging, back and forths where I would pitch an idea, he would react to it, he would counter pitch an idea, and I think we talked for probably 3 hours about the book one night. So there was a lot of idea generation happening and a lot of really exciting little bits of the story clicking into place in my mind. So, just under 3,000 words written, but I think lots more mapped out for future writing, which is really exciting. Anyway, it's been a long week. It's been a lovely week, and I'm really excited to be sharing this writing project that I'm working on. If any of you are working on writing projects, I would love to know. I would love to know what you're working on, how that's going for you, and how you've approached perhaps starting up a project of this size, because I am still kind of figuring that out for myself. And I am excited to share more about my process to come. I think I have a little 6 a.m. writing routine coming up for all of you, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And in the interim, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week and that your reading and writing are going well. And I will see you all soon. Bye.